Today is something I've been looking forward to and also dreading for a very long time. I've spent the last 2 years getting my little wild child, Scarlet, ready to go out on the pasture and regular fence, and today is the day she is going to be able to go out. Since I'm trying to make this as smooth as possible, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of a breakfast snack first so they're distracted, and then I'm going to go ahead and let Ziggy and Scarlet out onto the pasture for the very first time. Okay, girl. All right, Mare. Please be sensible. Zig? Ready to go out, buddy? Come on, Zig. On such a momentous day, it's only right that Tiny comes out to supervise. Come on, Zig. You're free. Go on. Go on. Ziggy was pretty suspicious at first. I thought he saw that the gate was open, but it looks like he wasn't quite ready to go out. He has gotten quite fond of Scarlet, and it's sometimes hard to peel these two away from each other. I have slowly eased Scarlet into respecting the fence a little bit better, and this will be her first time out on any type of fence that is not solid. I put up a few extra strands of the electrical tape. The fence is on, but it is not super hot. I feel like I've prepared her as much as I possibly can for this day, so the only thing there is to do now is sit back and wait. The last time Scarlet had this much open space to roam around in would have been before she was captured and sold at auction. So she might have a little bit of trouble being brave enough to get out on the pasture. Surprisingly, Ziggy took it nice and easy, letting her know that this was a safe place to be. Hey, Tiny. With his mare still a little bit hesitant about coming out onto the pasture, Ziggy didn't stray very far, but eventually Scarlet made her way out and started checking the perimeter. Because I don't want her terrified of the actual fence, the charge that is going through it is very low, so she would have to hold her nose on it for quite a long time before she gets actually shocked. Compared to the other boys, these two are being very reserved, but eventually Scarlet decided to stretch her legs a little bit. This is pretty common for a horse's first time out on pasture. At first they're a little bit reserved and cautious, but I imagine after a little while this girl is going to want to explore a little bit more. I was about to have a pretty big sigh of relief when I noticed her starting to stretch her legs. Thankfully, this girl is still too scared to go out too far from Ziggy on her own. She'd get a little burst of energy, trot out, and then run right back to his side. When she did decide to stray too far, Ziggy made sure to escort her to the other side of the pasture. Usually I like to show the horses the boundary of the fence, but this one is pretty well marked, so I wasn't worried that Scarlet wasn't going to see it. Sometimes, however, when horses are out and have the freedom to gallop around, they get to having fun and they forget where they're at and then they just run right into the fence. Even when she had pretty big bursts of energy, this girl decided to stay fairly close to Ziggy the entire time. I think the hot air balloon maybe made her a little bit more apprehensive about going out on her own.
Careful, girl.
The fence around this pasture is a pretty solid double twisted wire 3-strand fence with the electric on top now. And while Scarlet didn't run around with reckless abandonment, she did run the fence line to kind of check and see where everything was at. It was pretty interesting. She was finding the filled-in gopher holes very suspicious while she was out running around. I was expecting her to run around a little bit more, but I'm glad she's keeping it fairly low-key this morning. I have been really worried about this introduction with her to a fence. The last time that I had a very opinionated wild mare, she did run through 3 different fence lines the very first time I put her out. Putting a wild horse out on pasture is a little bit like introducing the saddle. You really only have one first shot at it. If it doesn't go quite right, then it is much harder to fix in the future. Since these two have not been out on grass the entire year yet, they'll probably only spend 15 to 20 minutes out here this morning. Neither of these horses seem to be sensitive to the grass, so I don't have to be particularly careful with them, but I do want to make sure I still have a slower introduction. Most of this grass is pretty mature and it is early on in the day, so the carbohydrate content should be on the lower side. As I moseyed through the pasture, Tiny let me know where there were gopher holes that needed attention.
Go, Tiny. Come on. Come on, Tiny. Ciao, girl.
I was a little bit worried that Scarlet would get a burst of energy and run right over Tiny, but Tiny is pretty aware of all of her surroundings. It only took these horses about 10 minutes to settle down this morning before they were just peacefully grazing, which was awesome to see. Tiny and I continued to check for stray gopher holes that I missed, but we hadn't found any. Tiny was more upset about the gopher holes that I did already cover up. Eventually, she did find one that had just sprung up, though.
Tiny, what do we got? Oh.
Even though I do fill in all of the gopher holes when I see them, these horses are pretty smart about avoiding them.
Boy Zig. Boy Zig. Hi Zig.
The ones that I really worry a lot about are the badger holes that show up in the early spring, and those are very easy to find. My tiny sacrificial pasture in the middle of these two turnouts seems to be working well for the gophers this year. I had thought about putting an additional strip of this electrical tape around this smaller pasture, but I do think that Scarlet is pretty aware of the boundaries now. When I first started renting this place, there was no electrical tape around it, and I think the horses did have quite a bit of trouble seeing it. After doing a bit more research on the internet and letting this grass grow a little bit longer, I think that it is actually cheatgrass. This is an invasive non-native grass that when the seed heads dry out do cause a lot of trouble for the horses. They can also work their way up in between the toes of dogs and cats, so I think I'm going to have to mow all this down. This is what the wire on the fence looks like. Even if the horses do run into it, the tensioners on the end usually break. I have had quite a few horses run right into this fence and either the staples that hold the wire on break or the end tensioners break, and the horses don't get hurt. Even the horse that I had run through 3 different fence lines, she didn't even have a scrape on her. I'm feeling pretty good about how these horses have reacted to this exciting day. I'm hoping it doesn't take too long to get them in. I'm planning on feeding them a little bit of ration balancer to entice them back into the dry lot. While Ziggy really loves Scarlet, I have a feeling that she's going to outgrow him relatively quickly. He is getting a little bit nasty to her. I think it's because she's growing and he's finally realizing that he won't be able to push her around much longer. It would be really nice if I could add her into the herd with the boys, but I think that will cause too much trouble. With Whiplash being a stallion for so long and Stewie being fairly aggressive around the other horses, I think it would cause a lot of trouble to try and integrate her into that herd. We are still doing a little bit of testing with a few things that are hopefully going to work for Prim. She has been really aggressive lately. She is actually not sound right now because she won't stop kicking the stall and the inside of the round pen. This time of year has always been really hard for her, and it tends to ruin my plans to get her started every single year. She's had a few vet visits to try and figure out what is going on, but everything has come back normal, so I think she just gets really painful when she's in heat. If you listen closely to some of the videos, you can hear her screaming throughout them to the other horses. With Frisco still recovering from his bout of laminitis, he cannot be running back and forth chasing her around, so I've been trying to keep them separate. Thankfully, the weather has been cooperating, so Prim has been staying out in the round pen. She's getting hand walked to try and hopefully calm her a little bit more. She's also been getting anti-inflammatories and a few different supplements to try and help with her reproductive woes. I'm really hoping we can get a handle on it and I will be able to turn her out with Ziggy and Scarlet so they'll have another friend out here. I also think it will be really good for Prim to have her own little herd that she is not too mean to. Frisco is usually nice and calm until he can actually see Prim again, and then he completely loses his cool and does not settle down for quite a while. It's always tricky trying to manage a bunch of horses this time of year because I do like for them to be out on pasture if at all possible. This small pasture is probably only around 2.5, maybe 3 acres. Even if I restrict their grazing, these 2 horses will go through all of this grass before the summer's over, so putting more horses out on it is not the best. I'm planning on slowly extending the turnout time for these two until they're able to stay out all day long. After I get these two in for the day, I am going to go over and turn the boys out, and they'll stay out until around dinner time. As the amount of time that Ziggy and Scarlet are out gets larger, the boys will get bumped over into the overnight time slot, so they'll stay out overnight and then I'll bring them in the morning. Every year my plans do shift a little bit just with the different horses I have in and who gets hurt. Studman's feet are doing so much better. He is doing really well on his diet. I think he looks a lot better than when I first brought him in. Depending on the weather, those two boys get turned out in the arena. I only gave these boys a little bit of a snack this morning because they are going to go out on the pasture all day. I'm still keeping a very close eye on Big Gus. He hasn't shown any signs of laminitis, so all of his stiffness is in his muscles. He does look like he gets a bit better after being out and moving around all day, but if it's too much for him to be out on the grass for 4 or 5 hours, I'll put him in the barn next to Frisco and he can get turned out on one of the tiny pastures. It's probably going to take me a week or so to get these boys switched over to their final arrangements for the summer, but when that does happen, it'll be a lot easier for me to bring them in every day and work them more consistently. A lot of people think it would be super fun to have your horses at your house, but they very quickly figure out that there are tons of chores to do and all of the fun stuff kind of gets pushed to the end of the day. With our house hunt in full swing again, it is getting harder and harder to carve out little bits of time to ride the horses.
Hey, Whip.
Taking care of them and making sure they have everything they need is my most favorite part though. This spring so far we've looked at around half a dozen places and all of them had a little bit something not quite right about them. The most recent one we looked at that I was very, very excited about was twice as big as the property I rent now, and it was in a pretty cool location that would give me a lot more time to ride. However, the area did have a lot of fracking and drilling for oil, and that is just something I do not want to mess around with. With everybody getting out of school now, I have noticed there has been a pretty big uptick in the number of listings available, so hopefully something will come along soon. This time of year would be perfect for us to get a new place because we can have everything situated by the time winter comes. With so many horses, it does give me a little bit of stress when I plan to feed them through the winter. I have a really good hay contact here who basically just comes and drops off all of the hay at my house, which is super nice. I am pretty picky about the quality of hay I buy, so when we move, it's going to take a while to figure out who has the best stuff. I've been getting a lot of questions about whether or not Tiny will come with us, and Tiny does belong to me, so she will come to her new barn and do the same type of supervising she does here. It might take her a while to adjust because she is going to have to share her duties with the few cats that I have at my house right now. She was just a tiny kitten when I got her, and she does know the other cats, so that should not be a problem. After I turned the boys out, I went home for lunch and to do a premiere. Huckleberry came with me back to the barn, but there was a huge lightning storm going on. Huckleberry hates lightning, so he had to stay in the truck while I got all of the horses gathered up and put in the barn.
Gotta move, girl. Gotta move. Come on, girl. Come on, girl. Frisco Bill. She's here, buddy. She's here.
Before it got too nasty out, thankfully I got all of the horses secured in the barn.
You hungry? Are you rolled? Nigel. Oh. Nigel.
In between the torrential downpours and the thunder and lightning, I decided to go ahead and drag the arena. It is pretty nasty out, but all of this moisture should make me able to dig up this sand a little bit.
Oh, Zigo! Zig!
As usual, Ziggy wasted no time getting completely covered in filth. By the time I finished dragging the arena, it was time to bring the boys in for the evening.
Good boys. Boys?
Not much I can do about the weather this evening, so after I got all of the horses fed their dinner, I decided to leave them in Tiny's capable paws.
Tiny? Oh.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.